Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Nicole and Ashley, and we are here today to review Crescent City House of Flame and Shadow. If you are new to our channel, we review all different types of books and give you our unapologetic and unprofessional opinions. So don't forget to like and subscribe and come read with us, sis.
All right, so if you guys watched our last video, we did a review on books 1 and 2 of the Crescent City series, and we finally got our release of Crescent City 3, House of Flame and Shadow. In this book, we pick up right after the end of book 2, where Bryce ends up in Prithian on accident, which is super exciting. We got that ACOTAR crossover. And so in this book, we are going to see what she does with the Prithian characters in ACOTAR and how she is going to finally eliminate the Asteri and save her world. We have new characters that come in. We have old characters that come in. And I'll tell you what, it is a wild ride. Okay, so what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to do a kind of a chronological order of the big main events that happen in this book. We'll each kind of give our 2 cents of what we thought of those events. Did we like it? Did we not like it? And then we'll finish up with a just overall review of what we think of the book. I think that it's fair to say we both really enjoyed this book, but there was also kind of some moments that were a little cringy that we weren't crazy about. Okay, so the first thing that we pick up on is, we're right away in Prithian.
Right away.
Yeah.
We go deep right away.
We go into Prithian right away. She is greeted by really all of the ACOTAR characters. She does not speak their language, which I'm so glad that SJM did that.
I didn't realize, I think at first, that they spoke a different language. I in my head just was like, oh, everyone speaks the same thing.
Right. I liked that too. I think it would have been maybe a little unrealistic if they did all speak the same language. I think it made sense that Amren was able to communicate with her through the ancient Fae language. I think that was a very good little snippet that she put in there that definitely made sense. But just with different countries, you can go to a different country and we're not going to speak the same language. I think if you go to a whole nother world, probably not speaking the same language. Yeah. So I did appreciate that. We got very little time with Feyre. We got very little time even with Cassian. This was mainly focused on Nesta
and Az.
We got a little bit of Rhys.
Which was cool. We did like that. I think what we did get of Rhys was super interesting compared to what we have seen with Rhys before.
Yeah, we got a new side of Rhys in this. We got the High Lord Rhys.
Not mad
about that, which again made sense. You have a new person popping up into your world covered in blood. Probably not realistic for all of the ACOTAR characters to just instantly trust and bring her into the fold. So I thought it was very realistic that we got to see that side of Rhys being that protective High Lord, looking out for his people, because he does imprison her. She gets thrown into a cell. And she was not happy about it. Let's just say that Bryce was not super crazy about the ACOTAR characters.
Yeah, she definitely gets treated like she is possibly a criminal come to destroy their world.
Yeah.
And again, very realistic in my opinion, I think. Yeah. I think it would have been really unrealistic if she would have just dropped in there and everyone was off the bat besties. So to me, I really enjoyed that part. I think it was fun listening to them bicker and try and figure out what each other's motives were.
I did love the interactions. I thought they were very realistic interactions. And then in true Bryce form, she definitely tries to be a little slick. She tricks Nesta and Az a few times. She escapes. And so I did like that we didn't have, a super trusting, healthy relationship right off the bat. And then I think from there, we had a really good kind of pivot back and forth between storylines. So we weren't just only in Prithian, for the entire first part of the book. We actually got to pivot back into Lunathian. And we were able to see the awful torture that Hunt and Baxian and Rune were experiencing, which was pretty dark for SJM.
Yeah, it was heavy.
It was pretty heavy. There was definitely some gross, torture scenes. I won't go into too much detail. I'll let you guys read that. But it did give me Aelin torture from Throne of Glass, which I like a little bit of darkness to my stories and my fantasy world. So I appreciated it. And I also think that she didn't spend too much time with it.
Yeah, I think the writing was really good. And like you said, it's not something that we normally get from SJM, like the dark vibes. And I think that it was, in a weird way, refreshing, right, from like the normal romantic-y vibes that you get where things aren't super in-depth. But I mean, she goes into detail of like the gross things. And I can appreciate the writing. Even though it's gross, I appreciated the writing. So it was, again, maybe not something, it's weird to like those things, but I did like that she did go darker.
I just think that it made the scene that much more dire. And it made you feel the urgency of like, oh, they got to get the hell out of here. Like we might get a death. We might get a main character death if they don't get out of here. And so I think she did a good job of making you really feel that urgency of like, they got to figure out a way out of this because this is really, really bad.
Yeah, and I think it could probably even explain some of Hunt and Rune's actions maybe later in the book. Like why they act the way that they do, because they were experiencing all these terrible things and they can kind of relate. Like if something goes bad, like I know what's going to happen.
What did you think about the prison scene in Prythian? Because we do pivot back from the torture scenes back into Prythian with Bryce. And she somehow gets Az and Nesta to follow her. Her starlight leads her to the prison.
Yeah, I thought it was so much info dump in like the best way.
I agree.
So much info in the best way possible. SJM, always just phenomenal writer. Normally, I don't love like the storytelling where it's like you don't get to live it on page. But with the prison scene in this book, even though it was someone telling a story of what happened, it still felt like you were there in real time.
Yeah, I think she did a really good job. I mean, honestly, this book could have been called the Book of Answers. And that's all it needed to be called. I mean, we got answers to so much. I mean, really had a good understanding of Thea, of how the Fae even got into Lunathian, like the world of Crescent City. We got answers to like the Trove that's in Prythian, the Asteri. We found out that the Daglin are the Asteri. Like it gets confirmed. So we get a lot of answers, and she didn't rush through it. I mean, there was a few chapters of just letting this story unfold. And so even though it was kind of like a huge dump of answers and a huge story that was going to play into everything, it didn't feel overwhelming to me. No. I know I've read a couple of reviews out there where people did feel like they were a little lost. I almost wonder if people felt lost because they haven't read the other two series. I do think that like reading Throne of Glass series and reading ACOTAR, not just ACOTAR before this series, does help a lot in understanding the world building and when you do finally get all of these answers that unfold. But I really appreciated it. I really liked it, thought it was well done. And we got to see a dark side of Thea. I mean, Thea before that moment was pretty much sat up on this like pedestal of being an amazing person. And, we all want to have like a strong female Fae character to like look up to that started everything. But she actually was kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah, she actually kind of sucked.
Yeah, she sucked. And she had two daughters that also kind of sucked. Like they tried to redeem themselves, but they also sucked and killed a ton of people, like killed a ton of humans. So that was kind of nice to get like a darker side of the Fae story, and knowing that like Bryce didn't really come from the most amazing descendants, and she really resents them for that. She has to struggle with the Fae even more than I think she did before. She already hated the Fae because of how they treated her and treated humans, and I think this just like solidified that road even more for her.
I think it was pretty pivotal in like her story through the book. Because there was a point after she left Prythian and went back to her own world at Midgard, and she had to go through this whole, like, I hate the Fae.
Yeah.
And they had to call her on her bullshit. Like, the only way to change it is to be a better leader. So you can hate us or you can be one of us and we can fix it. And I think it was pivotal to have that backstory of, like, oh no, my ancestors were shitty. Like, they were shitty.
No, I liked that. I liked that it gave her a little bit of an internal struggle to deal with throughout the book. So we end there in that kind of situation. But while that's happening, we're also getting the back and forth of Hunt and Baxian and Rune escaping via Lydia's help, which that shit was crazy.
My queen, Lydia.
That was so badass. Like, Lydia is such a badass. I might be a Team Lydia fan. Like, I think I liked Lydia more than I liked Bryce in this book, which is kind of crazy because she wasn't the main female character, but I loved her. She was such a badass. She got them out. She jumped off a cliff in the midst of it all, almost died, got rescued, and then bombshell gets dropped. What do we find out about Lydia?
Yeah, so she has kids, which normally I don't love a kid trope. I'm not like a kid trope person. I think that when kids or pregnancy get brought up in books, it's not like my favorite thing in the world. But I think it really played into her story very well. So we get this bomb drop that she has children, and it does feel like it's out of nowhere. I mean, it feels like so random.
It does.
But like it plays in so well. Again, just SJM playing everything in so well. And I think that when you find out she has kids, you're like, what the hell? What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
But then you do find out, like, you know, there was this pivotal moment in her life where she was not a good person. It wasn't like she has been faking it this whole time. Like, she was not a good person. And then she has kids and she's like, nope, I need to get my shit together. I need to be a good person.
It just gives her more background to her character so that you can understand her. But it also, I feel like we find out how she turns double agent. I mean, it literally unlocks that. For the longest time, like in book 1 and 2, we like can't figure out why she is a double agent. Like, how did she even get herself into this situation? We end up finding out it's one of the reasons why she even started a relationship with Pollux. And we find out that she's been working for the Ocean Queen because that's who's harboring her 2 children. She has 2 sons, they're twins. And we find out about like her really messed up relationship with her dad, which is why she has kids to begin with. So I really liked that. I was kind of thrown off at first because I'm very much like you. I don't like the kid trope and the mom trope, but
I love Lydia.
I love Lydia, and it wasn't like the typical like, oh, we have a happy ending and now I like have a baby thing. It was a very complex situation. So then we get to see more Rune and Lydia, which I am so here for Rune and Lydia.
I'm here for Rune. I'm here for Lydia. So them together was just like,
I love both of them. They finally have like real person sex, not in like the dreamscape or whatever they're in.
I'm sure they're both great, but
yeah. We finally get the Rune and Lydia sex scene, like the real sex scene, not just them sleeping as night and day together, which was great. I feel like it was very well done. The payoff was really good. This book comes out hot right off the bat. I mean, there's really not one part of this book where it's slow. I feel like maybe you get a couple chapters that slow down.
Maybe in the middle. There was a little bit of a lull, I think. I would like to talk about Ethan. I think Ethan's story was there, but to me, it did feel like a little random at times. I think he was doing the absolute most. And sometimes I just needed him to like step back and like realize what he was doing. But I did like the way that the story played out.
It was a very well done side story. I'll be honest, I think I liked Ethan's side story more than I liked Therion's. I still don't really, Therion just felt like such a filler character to me. I'm still not really that attached to Therion. I feel like he was very whiny. So I feel like Ethan's side story, I was here for it. I thought it was very interesting. The wolves, like everything was very interesting about how his played out. We got to see him have a really crazy fight in the Viper Queen's gladiator realm or whatever they call it, where she has all these people fighting that are like enslaved to her. So that was a really cool side story.
With Connor, I did really like his reunion with Connor.
Yes.
And like how Connor played a part actually in helping save them with the bullet that they made with the second light.
Yep.
I loved, I even though it was random, I love Ethan. I think that he's a young character that's still trying to find his way, and now he's Prime, so I'm sure we'll get more of that, trying to figure out how to be Prime of the Wolves. I have qualms with Therian, you know that.
Yeah.
I have qualms. I don't understand why he does the things he does.
Yeah.
I do think he was at times, like, he gave me so much anxiety. Like, for Ethan's point, I think Ethan did things and it was like, why are you doing that? Because there's other things to do, but, like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're trying to fix things, save yourself, save your people, save Sigrid. For Therian, it was like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing those things?
Because it didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, there was a lot of things that he would do, and it did feel, I think you said this a couple of times to me, that it just felt like very selfish of him. Mm-hmm. Like he would make these selfish decisions, but then also make these decisions that were like rash, like marrying.
Whose sister?
It was Tristan's sister. He marries Tristan's sister. The most random thing that could ever happen, because there's like no leading up to it. You don't even get an introduction to Tristan's sister, really, other than that she's Tristan's sister who just came to the Stag King to find a place to live and now might get sent back if she doesn't marry someone. And then it's like, I got it, I'll marry you. And then, like, a couple chapters later, when he's trying to fix everything with the River Queen and he brings her with, he's like, I'll divorce her and I'll marry the River Queen's daughter, if that will fix things also. Like, what are you doing?
It's a lot of really rash decisions from Therian. I don't know. I wasn't here for it either. But we did get some, interesting side stories while Bryce and Hunt and all them were kind of like doing their thing off page to save the world. I really enjoyed Hypaxia in this book. I really liked that we got more of her background. We find out she's been removed as like the leader of the witches. She got removed and then swears fealty to the Underking in the Bone Quarters. And then we get our very first confirmation of the Throne of Glass world crossover, because we find out that the Underking is from Aylin's world, is from the world of Throne of Glass. But that was really cool to hear his like story and what world he came from. And then we finally get like the really, at least for me, it was anticipated. I could not wait for someone to kill him because he was just a villain. Like, he was just a pure villain. He wasn't good.
Like, you're not a good guy.
No, he wasn't a good guy. Like, there was no redeeming like piece of his character. And so he is murdered. He is killed by Hypaxia, and Hypaxia then becomes the leader of the Bone Quarter.
And the
Reapers. Which is super cool. She controls the Reapers. She controls death, like dead people. And Jessica is now her second. So that was a really cool piece of the story. I kind of like that we got to pivot from that. And then we get back into Hunt, Bryce, and the rest of the clan, like Rune and Lydia, trying to figure out how they are going to defeat the Asteri. And they finally decide that really the only way to do it is to open up hell. The princes, they finally get to speak to the princes when they go to the Stag King's Island.
They find the underground caves.
Similar
to what was on Prithian. They do the black salt and they go in their minds to see the princes of hell, which was really cool.
Super cool scene.
I really, really liked that scene, actually. I thought that was one of the better scenes, was them getting to, like, round table with the princes, and you get to learn a lot of the backstory too with them. Bryce has a moment with Adis where she's like, Thea sucked, and he's like, yeah, she knew she sucked. Like, she understood that and she was trying to fix it.
And then we get some big bombshells dropped about Hunt. We find out that Hunt is technically a son of two of the princes of hell because they created him. They didn't necessarily father him,
which I kind of liked.
I did like that, but they helped create him. There was another angel that mated with his mother, and they like used their power to create him. It was a cool thing to unfold, to know that like he was made essentially to power up Bryce. Like, he was specifically made to power her up. And we do get confirmation that Hunt and Bryce are mates. And that was an accident.
And I do like that it was an accident, though. Like, I like that they didn't make Hunt to be Bryce's mate. Like, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. You guys, like, your souls are just tied. Like, you're just in love.
So that was kind of nice to find that out, because just to pivot back to the beginning of the book, there was some really strange interactions between Bryce and Azriel.
The tension.
There was a lot of hand holding between the two of them.
Describing of the hands
Yes.
and how they felt.
It was very interesting. They were being like pulled to each other. And for a hot second, I was like, oh, snap. Maybe Bryce and Hunt aren't actually mates.
I wasn't about it.
Yeah, I don't know really where that was going to go or what was happening there, but I was here for the journey. So it was nice to get that confirmation that, like, okay, they are mates. And
speaking of them being mates, though, let's talk about how it was a little underwhelming how they had their reunion when they got back together. I didn't love that.
It was a very underwhelming reunion.
Let's just cuddle. Let's just cuddle.
I don't know. SJM, what were you doing there? Because that was probably the most underwhelming reunion you've done in any of your series. That's for sure. And Bryce continues to kind of be not so nice to Hunt in the rest of this book, which also was making me question like their mate status. But again, the air is cleared with the Princes of Hell confirming, yes, you guys are mates. It wasn't supposed to happen, but you are. And we made Hunt to compliment Bryce to help her beat the Asteri. So we get some answers there. They finally wake up from the salts. And we have another crazy big scene. I feel like there's a million crazy big scenes in this book where both the Fae Kings, so the Stag King and the Autumn King, Cormac's father, and then Bryce and Rune's father, are essentially trying to murder them. They are there to try to murder them. They're going to try to keep Bryce to like mate her and make all these other, Fae babies. And yeah, I thought we might get a redemption for the Autumn King just because of certain things he would say and the way he would talk about Bryce's mom. But nope, she fooled us. He just was a piece of shit.
Them boys did.
Yeah, and they were murdered. So Bryce got the glory of killing the Stag King, Cormac's dad.
Good for her.
Good for her. And Rune murdered his father, which was very, oh my God, it was so rewarding.
Justice, baby.
It was so rewarding. So I loved that.
I like that they had a little moment too after that. Like it was
Bryce
a nice little sibling, like, that just happened.
Yep.
We're okay. That's over. We can move on.
And then Rune is like, I stepped down from any sort of royal title, and Bryce is now queen of all the Fae.
Chills.
So that was also huge. So now Bryce is the queen of all the Fae. She like controls the island. She controls the mist. She's got all this power. She's got crazy amounts of power because she finds the like third hidden well of power, which was like in the island.
Mm-hmm. She is power.
So she is now power. She is like probably the most powerful Fae on the entire.
Yeah, she has all the starlight power.
In the entire world.
All three parts of the starlight power.
Yep. So that was pretty badass.
Yeah.
I liked that for her. That she opens up the gates of Prithian. We think she's opening up the gates of hell, and then she's like, just kidding. Opens up the gates of Prithian, straight to Nesta, and essentially bargains with Nesta to get the mask so she can like raise the dead.
And she bargains her parents.
She bargains her parents away.
She like boot kicks them.
She does.
Into Prithian.
She does. She does boot kick them. Literally, she like shoves them into Prithian.
Yeah. Fucking
closes the door. And she's like, well, my parents are here now. I mean, a part of me was like, okay, she knows that it's a safe place for her parents. Her not bringing her stepbrother, I don't understand. He played no role in this book, by the way, so it makes me even more annoyed with, like,
if
him.
If you saw our other review for books 1 and book 2, you know our qualms with the whole story behind that.
Annoying. So she doesn't take her stepbrother there, but she pushes her parents in there. Nesta gives her the mask. So now she's going to be able to have the dead against the Asteri to raise. She opens up the gates of hell. The 2 princes come with all of their armies, which is super badass. And they march on the capital, and they bring it to the Asteri's door.
Mm-hmm. And
all the Asteri are there. We do get to see a scene of the war where, like, we get an Asteri death.
Mm-hmm. Time slows, the world.
Yeah, everything slows. And then we kind of pivot back into, like, Lydia and Rune trying to find her kids because her kids get taken by Pollux. So there's a lot of, like, multi-stories happening at once. We pivot back and forth between the chapters. And then Lydia finally kills Pollux.
Let's talk about what happens before Lydia kills Pollux.
Rune shoots her. I don't understand what he's thinking. I know he's trying to think like very quickly. He knows it's a trap. Lydia's not thinking straight. He's worried that she's going to get murdered. But he shoots her to injure her so that then he can go and save her sons.
Because you have the skills of the hind.
Because you have the skills of the hind.
Rune, excuse me.
I don't know. I mean, again, I think it just goes to show the trauma he experienced.
Yeah.
With the torture, and it's like he's obviously not making the best decisions. So that happens, but then Therian finds her, gives her the antidote. Oh my god, we didn't even talk about the antidote. So we can double back really quick, super quick recap. So they find an antidote to the parasite that the Asteri put in the water. And the parasite suppresses their power. Mm-hmm. So they get this antidote and they give it to a couple people. So Ethan gets the antidote. He's super powerful now. Hypaxia takes it. She's super powerful now. And Lydia gets to take it because Therian finds her in time. Mm-hmm. So now her powers are like crazy unleashed. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Lydia was already badass and powerful to begin with, but now she's like super Lydia. And she takes out Pollux. Mm-hmm. And the way she takes out Pollux is like, holy shit, this is so crazy. She has the fire element power, which kind of hinting towards Throne of Glass crossover there. But then we get the confirmation that she named one of her sons Brannon, because she is of this like old fae line that has this firepower. And what do we know about that? Brannon is from Throne of Glass.
The way my jaw dropped.
Yes, same.
I was like,
it might have been one of my favorite parts of the entire book because it was so crazy.
We were on a plane.
And
I was a little bit ahead of her, and I looked at Ashley and was like, I need you to hurry up.
It was crazy. It was really wild, and I was here for it. It gave us our second confirmation of a Throne of Glass crossover within the Crescent City world. Again, I'm already crazy about Lydia, so the fact that she's related to Aelin, which is like my all-time badass FMC like favorite character, it just made her that much better for me. So she kills Pollux. I mean, literally burns him to a crisp, like burns him.
Beautiful.
And then we understand why she shows up as a flame when her and Rune were like talking. So we finally find out like all this, stuff about Lydia. And then we pivot back to Bryce and Hunt. She destroys the power supply.
Pivotal scene in the war.
Yeah, pivotal scene in the war to the Asteri.
Because it is like also we find out like the kill switch for Midgard. It is the kill switch for Midgard. So if she destroys it, then she destroys everyone.
Yeah, so that actually starts making a black hole. But then Bryce decides to make her own black hole that sucks up that black hole.
She's so smart.
That I did not see coming. So that starts sucking her in, and both the 3 remaining Asteri go in there. And Bryce at this point is like just not going to survive. I mean, like she's in this black hole. There's no way for her to get out of it.
My girl can't breathe.
It's like sucking everything in. Hunt is like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
They can see it.
He can see it.
Everyone can see it.
Yes. Even the Princes of Hell show up and they can see it.
Adis is like, she gone.
Yeah.
She's gone.
And they're like, well, how is this black hole going to close if, like, she can't do it? And it was really sad when Adis was like, well, when she dies, the hole is going to close with her.
It was sad.
And so...
He was sad.
It was very sad.
Everybody was sad. I told her to choose life. He did.
I know.
Adis is a good Prince of Hell, honestly.
He is. He's really good. So that was a really sad scene. But then Hunt decides... I have issues with the Hunt rescue mission. I think Nicole and I differ on this. Hunt decides to rescue Bryce in one of those machines that the Asteri make. However, the machine is being hosted by Hunt's ex-lover's soul, Shahar. Mm-hmm. So they're like somehow working together while Hunt puts this machine on, like the Meg suit, I think is what they're called, and he jumps into the black hole to get her, even though he has no way of now moving. He somehow can breathe in it because he has the mask, and the mask allows you to like breathe in the black hole. That really doesn't ever get explained. Long story short, he pulls her through the black hole. She dies. We get a fake death. They pull him out just in time before the black hole starts to close up because all the characters now are there and they're holding the opening up to the black hole so he can get out with her.
That was a cool scene.
It was a cool scene.
All of them holding it open, and you get to like recap. They like recap all the characters, and it's like everyone's there to save them.
They did have, that was cool.
I like that.
But then Hypaxia shows up. Oh, just in time. Hypaxia shows up because Bryce is dead. And she's like, I can save her because Jessica decides to give her life for Bryce's life. And because Bryce's soul was never in her, it was owned by the Underking when she made that deal in book 1 for Danica. Hypaxia now owned her soul. So she could give her life back in return of another's life. And Jessica gave her life because we did find out early in the book that Jessica was actually human at one point and got cursed by one of the kings of hell, or prince of hell. And she just didn't want to live anymore. She'd been living for like 1,500 years.
Long time. My girlie was the keeper of the books.
Yes.
But I really liked, I know that you didn't feel that much emotion from Jessica's death, but I really enjoyed the way that Jessica's death was written. I think it was for a purpose, as opposed to like someone just dying and it being sad, which, don't get me wrong, I wish there would have been some of that in this book. But Jessica's death was like so beautiful to me. When she dies, you know, this whole time we've had this back and forth about the Underking and how he takes souls and they kind of just are put into second light instead of having like a peaceful afterlife. Mm-hmm. So when Jessica dies, and then you get a scene with Danica and the Pack of Devils and Lihaba, and they are going off into like a peaceful afterlife because of everything that they did. So I really liked it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought we get like that conclusion to what happens to your souls when you die. They don't just get eaten by the Asteri, you know, now they can go and live a peaceful, happy life. And it was a very good ending to all this Danica that we've had.
Yeah, it was.
So much Danica, and like there was never any conclusion. And then we get Connor back, and there was never any conclusion. And then Lihaba died, and we never really got any sort of closure with her death either. Like what happens to her, because she doesn't get a sailing. We don't know where she's at. We don't know what happened to her after she died. For me, I love that scene because you do get the closure to what happens to all of the important characters that have passed away, and where they go. And now they get to go off and live this peaceful, happy life. And I did cry. I thought it was so cute. I loved it. I was... Tears.
No tears shed for me. Although I did... I did feel like Jessica's death and everything you just said was the only thing that saved that fake Bryce death for me, because I thought the Hunt rescue was lame. I thought the fake death was lame. I was not moved by it. Yeah, and we can end with that part of the book, because at this point the book is pretty much over. But like, we have this huge war and no main characters die. No one dies. No side protagonist, no one important to the story dies, and I just feel like that is so unrealistic. I thought for sure it was going to be Therian, and I feel like I would have it would have served his character purpose
because we get a lot of point of views. We get a lot of Therian point of views,
and so I was a little disappointed. I mean, I know it's always hard when like characters we love die, but like it gives them. Sometimes I feel like it gives a character justice to give them a death, like a really important death.
Emotional trauma. Yeah, and that's what I want.
So we didn't get any deaths, and that was a little unrealistic. And then we end essentially with Bryce returning the mask, getting her parents back.
I did really like that scene though.
I did too.
Nesta and Bryce's mom have this whole moment, and like for all of us ACOTAR girlies, we know that Nesta has these mommy issues, right? So we get like that cute like moment between Nesta and Bryce's mom, and I did really appreciate that. And we also get to see a little bit of Cassian.
Cassian bonded with her dad.
Oh, so cute.
So that was a cute scene. And we get a hint of we know really probably what the next ACOTAR book is going to be about, because Bryce not only gives her back the mask, but gives her the Star Sword and essentially says, like, there's some stuff you got to figure out. Like, there was no coincidence that you also had the 8-pointed star on you. And I think that you need to, like, search for answers for that. So it was definitely like a little mini cliffhanger for us to be like, okay, we already know the next book. She's already said that the next book is going to be an ACOTAR book. And so I think it just was kind of a like hint of, okay, it's going to be focused on Nesta. I think it's also going to be focused on Az. We got a lot of Az in this book. So I think that was really cool. We got to see some insights to that, but also that, like, she's got 4 more books that she said she signed on for with this Maas verse. And we know there's more Crescent City. I think at least one more Crescent City. I think we're going to get a Lydia and Rune,
hopefully,
Crescent City book. And I think we're going to get a Throne of Glass crossover.
And I think it would make sense, because if we're talking Lydia, Throne of Glass, obviously we have ties there. And SJM has come out and said that one of the books she is coming out with has a very special place in her heart. And I would just die if it was Throne of Glass. I'm so excited.
I think it's going to be Throne of Glass. And I also think, I'll just throw a prediction out there, I think it's going to be Manon, because SJM has said that one of her favorite characters from Throne of Glass was Manon and holds a special place in her heart. Which
would also make sense, because if we're talking theories, I do think that the lost witches in Throne of Glass are the witches that are in Crescent City. So lots of theories there. I really just hope that we do get a tie into Throne of Glass, which I do think that we will. And in terms of the ACOTAR crossover, I know that some people had some qualms with it. I think people were a little disappointed there wasn't more ACOTAR, but I thought that it was really, really well done. I think that if there were any more ACOTAR, it wouldn't have been a Crescent City book.
Right.
You guys need to remember that this is a completely separate series in ACOTAR. It's not the same series. So I think she did it really well. I was really, really happy with the way ACOTAR played in. It wasn't too much. And the tie-ins with Throne of Glass are just giving me so much hope.
It was cherry on top of everything. I was so excited for that. So I think we can go ahead and give our star reviews.
Yeah. I gave this book a 5. I know that we did have a little bit of issues with some things. There were some characters that were annoying. There were some things where I was just like, why? But overall, I'm basing this solely off of, like, my emotions, and I loved it. I think I had every emotion I wanted to have. I did love the characters. I have such a special place in my heart for Hunt and Bryce because of book 1. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I will give it a 5-star.
I also will give it a 5 stars. Even though there was a couple moments that were, like, cringy for me, I just thought it was really well done. I think she did it justice. She gave us a ton of answers that we have been dying to know. And then also, in true SJM fashion, gave us more questions. And that's also super exciting. So I really liked this. I also love Bryce and Hunt. I also love Lydia and Rune. I love Hypaxia. I just feel like she did such a good job with, like, making you fall in love with all these different characters while still staying true to the main ones. And I love the ACOTAR crossover. I'm here for it. I think she did such a good job. I agree with you. It wasn't too much. It was just the right amount of them. And it was a perfect lead up to her next book that she's going to release. So I'm super excited. I highly recommend this series. Even though the second book I wasn't crazy about, the first book was still just honestly perfection. And this book was just super, super hot the entire time. It was a wild ride for the whole book. I couldn't stop turning the pages. And to me, that's a 5 out of 5.
That's a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
It's a page turner.
So we loved it. I hope you guys loved it too. If you've already read the book, go ahead and leave a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We did have a spoiler-free review posted on our Instagram page, so you can check that out, or you can tell your friends to check that out if they haven't read it yet and they just want to hear a spoiler-free review. But go ahead and give this a read and come read with us, sis.